A good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final round of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship for 2024. The first half of 2024 at least. Just over 10 minutes to go in qualifying here at Zolder, the track which has been a while since I've actually commentated on, so it's good to be back. These drivers, of course, were here last year, as I say, with that one, but it's a bit of a mainstay on the GT calendar is Zolder, this circuit, of course, so it is good to be here. Have 10 rather technical corners, quite tight and twisty given the capabilities of this car, so it'll be interesting to see the slightly wider LP GTM GT3 Julia's navigating this circuit. It opens up a little bit down the start, finish straight on board at the moment with Andy Craker, who was briefly leading this session as he heads onto the next lap. I should mention corner names, by the way. I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce here, but what you've just seen there is a little bit of a glitch we've been experiencing recently with this circuit. You have no problems at all driving around, unless you seem to touch the sand, where it all goes a little bit wrong. For some reason, the physics of the game gets a little bit unhappy, so drivers are being... it would be wise to avoid the sand, shall we say. You can see it there's at some points on getting close to the apexes of the corners, but for the most part, the sand/gravel is on the parts of the circuit you wouldn't want to be on anyway. It's there to slow you down as you head towards a wall. Someone who might need a little bit of slowing down is John Cole. He currently leads this session. It's 133.1. Of course, just towards the end of this championship, ended up losing out to Colin Knief. A great drive late on in the season for Colin Knief. He takes this championship. But John Cole, close behind in P2, of course, he's done a very good job as well, particularly strong starts this season as well. So strong starts to his qualifying runs so far this evening as he heads through the first sector. Watching now, heading through turn 7. It's a little bit of a corner complex, this. The right-hander left, and then the right. As John Cole goes purple through the first sector, it's 28.4. What can he do through this middle sector? The car dancing around, looking like it's working those tyres so hard that it barrels its way through the tarmac there. It's another purple sector for John Cole. He is absolutely flying along. Just one more real corner to go. In fact, it's not just one more real corner, it's just one more corner. Full stop to go. Jackie Ix, the corner left to go, the left-hander, for a dart to the right, back onto the throttle, and I think we could be seeing another purple sector here. It's a very good lap so far as John Cole crosses the line. It's not a purple sector. In fact, he loses a little bit of time, but it's a 132.806 last time out for John Cole. Absolutely flying along there. He's about make that a 0.6 of a second faster than Barry Clayton last time around. Andy Craker in the mix there as well. He's about 0.4 faster than Andy. Andy, who we know has some decent pace in these LM GT3 cars. We, of course, enjoyed them in the Winter Endurance Championship a few months back, and it looks like we're going to be having some summer fun in the interim as well. Who is that with a big off? That is Andy Craker, who's doing well in this session, but unfortunately his momentum a little bit dampened, shall we say, with that slight off. He is back up the way though. So yes, the summer fun events coming up in the next few weeks. We have a bit of a break from our main championships, a bit of a time to prepare them, get everything ready, and in that interim we enjoy a bit more of a slightly different format. You may see some of those streams sometimes. I may also be participating in some of them, and I'm not going to say too much just in case plans change or just in case we want to keep things under wraps, but we're going to be enjoying some classic machinery potentially. So that'll be very enjoyable, something very different indeed. These drivers have been getting very familiar with the modern cars over the past few seasons, so it's time to rip them out of all of the comfort of traction control and downforce and radial tyres and get back onto some bias plies with no traction control and just a big camshaft, really, to aid you in your throttle control. That's all you really need. So yes, that might be coming up in the next few weeks. Just over 5 minutes to go in this session now. It's still John Cole who leads from Andy Craker and then Barry Clayton. Jack Hodson doing a decent job there as Andy Craker finally jumping onto our time tower. That'll be because he's completed another fast lap since I've joined this session. It's John Cole, Andy Barry, and Paul Millman, the cars out on track at the moment. Let's have a look at Paul Millman. 135.7. He's clear of Steve Knight at the moment. He's trying to get close to the likes of Jack Hodson. That's going to be on midfield action for this weekend's worth of racing, I suspect. Of course, there we see Paul Millman running in his traditional livery, the blue, the pink, purple and the white. They're all a familiar sight for Paul Millman's cars. Very distinctive. Some good liveries in the past for Paul as well. We've already delved into livery chat, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to report we've done that a couple of occasions so far this season, but I think it has to probably go to John Cole. Guy Swarbricks is always very good as well, and you've got the Yodolf Martini livery in there as well. So they're the firm favourites in my eyes, at least. But the liveries, as ever, are impeccable. This, of course, just as a reminder, just in case you don't know, it is the final round of this season. It's Colin Knief who takes the championship with a stonking 364 points. He might not be present this evening. He might be joining late on in this qualifying session, so we shall see. But it doesn't matter anyway. He has got such a substantial lead out there. Then we have John Cole, 311 points. Matt Daly, 273. Will Inglis with 204. So Will Inglis not here this evening. Won't be joining. Isn't quite comfortable at Zolder. So Barry Clayton, if he takes away some race wins or some podiums, can actually jump ahead of Barry Clayton in this championship for P4. Likewise, Jack Hodson can maybe. No, it doesn't look like he can. Neither can Alan Matthews. It's all pretty set in the Touring Car Championship at this stage. And it's looking pretty set at the moment for John Cole. 3 minutes to go in this session, and as we say, it's been great pace for him so far. It's a 32.5 in the last lap. Sorry, his last fast lap. A little bit of oversteer creeping in through the mid-sector. That could cost him. It was a slow sector one as well. Perhaps the tyres not completely in their comfort zone at this point. We're going to go on board, though, actually, with Jack Hodson. He's going to be behind John Cole, at least, the next car to cross the line. We're seeing him taking those curbs there. That upsets the back end of the car ever so slightly. He's still running good, though. 29.1 for his first sector, so maybe he can at least match or still slightly improve on his previous middle sector time. He's absolutely ringing that car out for absolutely everything. That may happen quite a lot this evening. I might say kart, and that's purely because over the weekend I did take part in the British University's Karting Championship 24-hour event. I was a driver and briefly a commentator as well in that 24-hour race. So all I've got blazoned onto my memory of talking about kart and the noise of two four-stroke kart engines just kind of buzzing away in the background. That is going to be my head for the next few weeks. So apologies if I slip up and say kart instead of car. That's the reason why. As we see Jack Hodson coming on to that start-finish straight. It was a loss through the middle sector and a loss through the final sector as well, but he does actually still improve with a strong first sector, 34.5 as we hit 2 minutes left on the clock now. It's John Cole in the pit. Andy Craig will be the next to cross the line as he heads up towards the Jackie Hicks corner here. And back onto the start-finish straight. Set a good number of laps, has Andy. 10 laps. John Cole setting 12. We wait to see now as Andy makes it 11. Does he improve? No, he does not, as that was an outlap. That's why he hasn't improved, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise. I should definitely have spotted that with the 1 minute 13 sector 1. Yes, John Cole, 12 laps under his belt. Steve Knight, 12 as well. It's been a good, consistent qualifying session for Steve. Looks like he's having a couple of internet-based issues, so hopefully he gets those remedied for the race. Barry Clayton heading into the session with just 4 laps under his belt. So it's going to be potentially a little bit of back foot for Barry Clayton. There is, of course, practice sessions as well that run basically from the end of the previous round. As a lot of oversteer there for Jack Hodson. Sorry, not Jack Hodson. For Andy Craig as he rides over those curbs. He is able to correct it. But that was looking a little bit uncomfortable there. So good correction there from Andy Craig. I should mention that there really is not that much room for error here at Zolder. We already saw just how much the sand likes to defy physics and murder you. But also, the wall's very narrow here. The track's not the widest, and the walls kind of close in on you. It's almost Montreal-esque in that sense. The walls just occasionally just run right alongside the track. So small little errors there are going to be very costly indeed if you end up planted in a wall We do see, though, Andy Craker goes purple through the middle sector, has one more corner to negotiate once again. Back onto the loud pedal. Will it be pole for Andy Craker? Can he bring that challenge to John Cole? As he comes across the line in just a moment, he improves. It's not improving by enough. It's oh so close, though. It's a 32.588 there. Only 7/10 of a second separate Andy Craker and John Cole. What a fine margin there. That's going to make for a brilliant set of races coming up this evening, ladies and gentlemen. The margins are oh so close on one lap. There we have John Cole actually congratulating in the paddock there. Andy Craker already. He's gone up and oh, that's a very unfortunate spin. Let's get back underway, though, and get ready for race one coming up in the next few moments, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 30 seconds now until lights out. We're here on the grid at Zolder for the finale, the final round of the 2024 H1 939 Corse Touring Car Championship. And what a championship it has been. The fight against John Cole and Colin Knief comes out with Colin Knief on top, but John Cole will come out on top in this race, at least because he's actually here. Anyway, on the front row it is John Cole and Andy Craig, just over 10 seconds. And now, as we navigate the 10 corners of the infamous Zolder circuit, the revs begin to rise. It's 6 red lights on the gantry. You can see the smoke pluming out of these turbo V6 engines, and we are away for race 1 here at Zolder. Jack Hodson gets a very good launch there. He's trying to find a way past Andy Craker. Barry Clayton goes to the inside there, but Andy Craker has to try and find a way around the outside if he wants to shout at getting past John Cole. He's not going to be able to get past John Cole, though. It was a really good run for Mr. Cole in the black and red car out in front. We're on board at the moment with Paul Milliman. Good start for him. He's behind the likes of Jack Hodson, Barry Clayton, potentially in the mix here, especially if anything goes awry for the cars out in front. We're seeing Barry Clayton having to defend ever so slightly as we head into the mid-sector of the lap. It's Jack Hodson, as I say, with that good launch. He's been rewarded with that. He can really fight now. Andy Craig, meanwhile, very much focused on trying to keep John Cole at bay. You don't want to take too much of these curbs that we're looking at for a couple of reasons. A, it's going to upset the car. Obviously, it's going to fly the car up into the air. You've got a bit more fuel on board as well, a bit more momentum in the car. It could get a bit more upset. B, as we've mentioned, the track glitches means that some parts of the grass are going to completely and utterly annihilate your car. We've all made it through the first few corners and are looking like we're going to make it through the first lap all cleanly, though. So well done, everyone, for that. Andy Craker with the headlights on, trying to intimidate John Cole out in front. I don't think there's going to be much intimidating John, though. He seems to be a fairly tough nut to crack and has done for so long in this season. And there we see that was Barry. Oh dear, no, that is going to be a bit of a crack there, though, perhaps in his car, as he is the first to fall foul of the track glitches. I don't think that was his fault. I think that was actually a bit of contact from Andy Craig, or maybe he got across Andy Craig. We weren't quite at the right camera angle to see that. Either way, a bit of a racing incident. But he ends up on that grass, and that grass kills the car. He's down into P6. 36 cars on board, though, on track at least. It should be quite easy to make up some positions later on into this race. He's just going to have an earlier reverse grid race than perhaps he would have expected, that's all. This promotes Barry Clayton into the lead of the race, with Jack Hodson running in P2. Paul Millman, once again, as he has done so often throughout the later parts of both the single-seater and the touring car action, has found himself fighting for a bit of a podium here. And I'd like to point out that Barry Clayton is actually running in P4. Apologies, he's not running it in at first. It's Jack Hodson now who's in first. We've seen a few podiums from Jack Hodson, but I believe I'm right in saying this could be our first race win. Do correct me if I am wrong there. But it's looking good for Jack Hodson at the moment if things stay this way. Not to be outdone, Paul Millman, who we were just talking about, he's currently running for a podium as well. 2.5 seconds behind Jack Hodson. He just needs to use him as a bit of a pace reference now. Try and echo some of his lines perhaps and keep up. And it'll be another podium to add to his roster. Steve Knight currently running in P3. Steve Knight, we haven't really seen eclipse out of that midfield action so far this season. So if he's able to find himself running on the podium, that'll be very nice indeed. A good few points on offer for that as well. Currently like an okay lap this time round as well. So he's running in P3. Under pressure, though, potentially from, I was about to say Barry Clayton, but Barry Clayton's having some further issues by the looks of things. On board then with Andy Craker, as it's John Cole who's a lap down, who's hunting down Steve Knight. The track already proving a little bit dangerous for some of these cars now. Jack Hodson still leads this race. It's going to be, as it turns out, just like I'm given, especially last weekend, I'm very much in the correct mode for it. It's going to be a race of attrition. It's going to be a bit like an endurance race in that sense. It's going to be about just trying to avoid that grass, making no mistakes, and you're going to come away with a decent result here. We're seeing John Cole 1 lap down already. I think he could have had another further issue as he looks to try and get past Steve Knight now. Let's see, Steve Knight, does he relent? I don't think he... Oh, no, he does actually. It's very courteous of Steve Knight there earlier on the brakes. Allows John Cole past. Nicely done there. As I say, Zolder, quite a narrow circuit. Not the easiest place in the world to be allowing cars past. as Barry Clayton has to dive into the pits again, so further calamities for Barry. He gets out on track, running in P5 at the moment. Andy Craker also in the pits, running in P4 at the moment. Disaster for Andy Craker. As we see Barry Clayton actually demoted down into P6 now. Steve Knight, meanwhile, running in P3. I mean, having pace is one thing, but it's bringing the car home certainly has its merit, and we're seeing that being rewarded so far this evening. Jack Hodson, who was looking strong on the launch, even stronger at this point in the race, leading by 4 seconds. Paul Millman leading Steve Knight by 8 seconds. That's our top 3, only the top 3 on the lead lap of this race. Strong lap there from Jack Hodson, I should add, a 1:34.5. That's the fastest lap we've seen so far this race. Has just been eclipsed by John Cole, just as I was speaking there, and that is John Cole there with a 33.8. What could have been in this race for John Cole. It's still going to be a few points on offer. Not that that matters at this point in the championship, but it's not a trophy to add to the collection, which is, of course, what John Cole wanted. Running in P4 at the moment, though. Can he catch up to Steve Knight? He's got a lap to make up in 20 minutes. That is a very tall order indeed. Let's see if he can do that. Back on board with Jack Hodson, leading this race 4.5 seconds at the moment. As long as he keeps away from that grass, it's going to be a nice plain sailing victory for him, I think. We're just seeing Andy Craker here dropping down behind Barry Clayton now, so I wonder if these drivers who have already had a bit of a skirmish with the grass, who've already ended up in the pits, are seeing that being perhaps repeated later on into this race. Looks like we could be seeing Paul Millman under a little bit of pressure coming up in just a moment. John Cole is absolutely flying along, it must be said. He's about to come across the line there, does so. It's a 32.7. That would have seen him P3 in qualifying. Hunting down Paul Millman. He's got ahead of Steve Knight, has John Cole now. And is very much focused on trying to get past Paul Millman and begin to unlap himself if possible. 18 minutes to go. Can he do it? We shall find out. Lead pace at the moment is in the 34s. John Cole running in the 32s. 2 seconds a lap. We're expecting probably to have around about 12 laps in this race. That'll be a very tall order indeed. He's going to be looking at about 30 seconds he can make up on the leader of this race. He's not going to be able to unlap himself at this point, but going to get ahead of Steve Knight, potentially Steve Knight in the 37th to 5-second margin between John Cole and Steve Knight in terms of pace at the moment. Watching John battle Paul Millman. 5 seconds, about 12 laps. That's going to be a minute that he can make up to minute 30 around here, so it's going to be very close indeed. If Steve Knight has a couple of issues, that might be the only chance that John Cole has of getting back onto the lead lap of this race at least. Should be doable, potentially. We shall see. 17 minutes to go in this race. That is John Cole's challenge for this evening's racing then, as we see Paul Millman goes too deep into the corner there. Bit of a lock-up. That nearly cost him, did. He nearly ended up on the grass. Manages to avoid it though, but he goes deep into the corner, as I say, loses the position there, opens the door up to John Cole, who is looking to unlap himself. The lead continues further on through the track. We're also seeing some really good pace here from Andy Craker as well. Another great shame in this race. A front runner finding himself at the back end of the running. Perfect middle sector that time around for Andy Craker. Personal best around sector 1 and sector 3 as well. 33.3 puts him on an identical pace, actually. It's a 33.35 for Barry Clayton and a 33.357 for Andy Craker. Very close in terms of pace indeed. And Paul Millman has a big off there, ends up in the grass, and that is going to be a pit lane visit for Paul Millman. You might be thinking, oh, the car's only jolting around a bit. Can you not get it underway? No, the car does not want to move at all if you're out on the grass like that. All you can do is jump into the pits, and that has also happened for Steve Knight. That means our only driver not to have an issue with the grass, not to have to dive into the pits so far this race is not Paul, but it's Jack Hodson. Jack Hodson absolutely flying along at the moment. Not blistering performance, 34.5. He's the only driver in 34, so everyone else is either slower or a little bit faster than him. but he hasn't put it in the grass yet, and that is going to make the big difference in this race. Jack Hodson at this point can afford to absolutely crawl the car home, and he will come away with a nice, easy victory. So that's my advice there, Jack. Not that you should really listen to my advice. There's a reason I'm talking about it and not driving. Well, there we go. Jack Hodson comes across the line, leading this race once again, and leading by a much more substantial margin as well. Pressure is on now, Jack Hodson. You're the only driver yet to have an unfortunate visit to the grass and ended up in the pits. So let's hope, for your sake at least, that we don't see this happening. Commentator's curse may have just been brought into effect there, so I do apologise if that is the case. And it looks like Paul Millman, Stephen Knight having further issues here. Jack Hodson, the only driver yet to fall foul of the tricky grass here in the finale at Zolder. This is, of course, the penultimate race of the season. What a season it's been as well. The introduction of the GT3 cars in official running. Great looking car there. Of course, an imagination, really. An imaginary car, of course. The LP GTM GT3, inspired by the Giulia Saloon, turned into coupe form, still powered by that 2.9 bi-turbo quadrifolio engine derived from the Ferrari V8, a magnificent power plant, of course, very appropriate for GT running. Not a little bit ahead of its time, actually, of course. GT cars infamously running, 4-litre turbo V8, or maybe the odd naturally aspirated engine, or the likes. And then we had, of course, BMW quite recently bringing it down to the 3-litre turbo straight 6. That's used as the S58 in their modern M2 and M3 competition vehicles. That, of course, came years after the 2.9 bi-turbo Alfa Giulia, which has been on sale now for coming up on a decade, really. I think it's about 8 years, 8 years at this point in time. And what an engine it is, and we're seeing it being put to good use. Maybe not at the Zolder, not the utmost in straight line performance, but it's still a strong power plant nonetheless, and it suits this GT3 car very well. This interpretation of a GT3 car, Giulia Coupe, and a Giulia Coupe would have been a very fine thing indeed. It's unfortunate that market forces mean that they weren't able to produce such a vehicle. We didn't get the Giulia Estate, we did get the Stelvio though, at least. We didn't get the Giulia Coupe. What a car that would have been. At least we get to see some of it here. As John Cole has another big off there, the back end of him, at the back end of his car. Rather right. That's one for the blooper reel. As avoid the grass there, John. Oh, we've got another. Oh, I'm so sorry. We've got to continue to watch this. Narrowly avoided there. So we're going around once again. Avoid the grass. Still, yeah. Gravel's safe. Grass is not. Good. We're back underway. That was a very unfortunate incident there for John Coles. Cost him a lot of time, and also the back end of his car just seemed really slow to kind of pendulum round. The momentum, the weight balance was kind of shifted towards the back of the car, and it just wanted to spin. As we see there, that's Andy Craig actually clattering those curbs. John Cole only 1 lap down. And Barry Clayton only 3 laps, as well as Andy Craig only 3 laps down as well. We have Andy Craig and Barry Clayton potentially able to fight. Although John Cole is in the way there. Well, I say in the way. He might be back up to pace now. Might be being the operative word. Of course, the tyres take a bit of a beating if you spin around. They get much hotter. The surface gets a little bit unusable for a brief moment, and especially if you have an off into the likes of the gravel or the grass. Well, the grass at this circuit for a very different reason, but the gravel at least because you get a load of detritus, dirt, and muck on the tyres. That affects the surface and makes it so that you need to have a few corners really before you can bring the car back up to full pace. I nearly said car then. Before you can bring the car back up to full pace. We see that Andy Craig having further issues. Another visit to the grass there. I don't think it completely stopped him. He was able to continue on. We're now in the final 10 minutes of this race, but as you can see there, the car looking a little bit upset now. The tyres, I imagine, no longer at their best, because of distance completed and also just the conditions of having to rejoin the track after an off. So he's going to have to work very hard to bring that car into a more comfortable window. Meanwhile, Jack Hodson out in front, still not cracked under pressure. 1 minute ahead of the rest of the field. He's put in a stellar performance this evening. The only driver to keep the nose clean, and that is a mighty impressive job, given the fact that basically we're playing the floor is lava with a racetrack. It's very impressive indeed to see Jack Hodson being able to continue on as we head into the next few corners now. Not taking too much of those curbs. Steve Knight has an issue and has to dive back into the pits as well. This is going to be soon only Jack Hodson, leader of this race, on the lead lap as well. A mighty fine job, as they say. Just over 5 minutes to go in this race. Let's have a look at what this championship has shaped up to be in the end. As we say, a very strong start for, well, it wasn't quite John Cole, actually. It was Colin Knief at a double win at Donington. It really started off his season well. Andy Craker P2 in the second race, Alan Matthews P2 in the first, and then we have Matt Daly featuring on the podium as well. The second race, we move over to Hungaroring. Of course, the Touring Car Championship used to be a UK thing. Now we've expanded all the way out to global tracks, of course. We see Colin Cleeve taking another race win, with John Cole making his first appearance on the podium alongside Andy Craker as well. That second race then continuing on from that momentum, with John Cole taking the win. Colin Cleeve behind in second, with Willingless also making another appearance. Moving on to Silverstone, round 3. Matt Daly, who took a race win. In fact, he took 2 race wins, with Willingless, Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton and Andrew Rammer featuring on the podium as well. Round 4, Mugello, Matt Daly and Colin Caniff taking race wins, but John Cole present on the podium as well. Then we get into the mid-season, where it's a double race victory for John Cole. Barry Clayton, Alan Matthews featuring on those podiums. Nordschleife, round 6, of course, our endurance special, worth 2 times the number of points as every other round. We race for 50 minutes around the Nordschleife. Still only about 5 or 6, maybe 7 laps. So not the longest race in the not the most number of laps in the world, but certainly a challenge nonetheless. Colin Caniff ended up taking victory there, with John Cole P2, Matt Daly P3. Croft, round 7, Colin Caniff taking both race victories, with John Cole coming second in both as well. I believe we only had the 2 competitors in that race. Then we have round 8, Spa, Matt Daly taking race 1 victory, John Cole taking race 2 victory, with Rosie Oliver making her first appearance on the podium as well. Who could forget Spa? A great round for Rosie Oliver. And she continued that momentum actually into round 9, where we saw Rosie Oliver taking P3 at Alton Park, with Matt Daly taking a race victory in the first race, with Willingless taking a race victory in the second. John Cole featured the podium in P2, Barry Clayton in P3 in race 1 as well. We move on to round 10, Hockenheim, a month ago now. Colin Caniff taking double race victory, with Willingless appearing on the podium, as well as Andy Craker, Matt Daly and Jack Hodson. And Jack Hodson only looks to be getting stronger as we continue on through the season. Just look at what's on your screens now, ladies and gentlemen. Round 11, of course, was at Snetterton. A bit of a personal favourite of mine, Matt Daly taking race 1 victory, John Cole winning race 2, Colin Caniff featuring on the podium in race 2 after a disastrous race 1. Willingless and Barry Clayton making appearances on the podium as well. And that brings us to the final round of this year's running. We're about to come towards the end of the penultimate race, before we start the reverse grid race coming up in a few moments' time. Where so far, it's looked very good indeed for Jack Hodson, leading this race by a minute now. He's done well to keep the nose clean. Paul Millman, despite having issues, running in P2. The likes of Steve Knight, Barry Clayton and Andy Craker also having issues. That has meant that John Cole, despite starting lap 2 in P6, has now found himself running in P3. So a podium on the cards once again for John Cole. A decent recovery, all things considered. Heading down the start-finish straight in just a moment, it will be Jack Hodson as he comes across the line now for what will be the penultimate lap of this race. As he starts that line, as he crosses that line with just over 60 seconds left on the clock. It's a 1:30 lap, of course. This being the penultimate lap then that Jack Hodson is beginning at this moment in time. Only Jack Hodson and Paul Millman on the lead lap of this race. Apart from round 7 at Croft, pretty much unprecedented. Really, only 2 drivers on the lead lap of the race. The reason it was unprecedented, the reason it happened at Croft is there was only 2 competitors. But here we have Paul Millman and Jack Hodson running along then. As I say, only drivers on the lead lap, although John Cole might be getting closer. As we celebrate what has been, arguably, especially relative to all the other drivers, definitely the strongest race of the season. And the strongest race perhaps ever for Jack Hodson. A race of victory, something he's been waiting for a very long time. That white and orange liveried car, I'm sure he'll be delighted to be bringing it home in the position that he does. All he needs to do, though, is bring it home safely. It'd be absolutely disastrous at this point to have a small off, because it's not a case of losing time when you go into the grass. You have to go into the pit. It's the only way to recover the car. And he will lose position as a result, potentially. He will, in fact, lose a lap. He will fall behind the likes of Paul Millman, probably John Cole as well. He cannot afford to have an off now, ladies and gentlemen, as I say, this is a penultimate lap of this race. We are going to be getting ready to start the final lap of this race in just a moment. Great view on board the car here. We can see the rev rising on that twin-turbo 2.9-litre V6. Andy Craig gets ahead of Barry Clayton, because Barry Clayton's had to jump into the pits once again. But it's Jack Hodson who starts the final lap of this race now. Heading through the first couple of corners. Got a bit of a right-hander here. Slightly lower radius coming up next for the third corner. I'll try that again. Many overtaking opportunities available here, such as the kind of stop-start nature of this circuit. It's very reminiscent of a street circuit to me, actually, although it is, of course, a dedicated venue. Running all the way down now to the 5th corner, the small chicane as it is known. And that small chicane can become a big problem sometimes if you run over that large curve there. It's definitely a GT car curve if ever I've seen it. A GT car, of course, out of all of the racing machinery, perhaps most adept at taking massive curves. Now, of course, based on traditionally bigger road cars, and that is why, as we head into the more technical part of the lap before running down to turn 8 at the corner that turns back in on itself, the closest thing we have to a hairpin here at Zolder, and a small kink in the two back straights before we finish the end of the lap. And Jack Hodson cannot wait for the end of this lap, I presume, because it will mean race victory as he comes to the end of this 25 minutes. The only driver, as I say, it's a real achievement. It's the only driver to make it through absolutely unscathed. A real feat here. We haven't seen it so far this season, but for Jack Hodson, it has been a utterly stellar drive. He takes race victory. Congratulations, Jack Hodson. You sit on the top step of the podium, and look at the weaving in celebration there. That has been a long time coming. Rosie Oliver joins, celebrating with a sibling potentially as he joins the reverse grid race in a few moments. But congratulations, Jack. He dives onto that grass for the first time in this race, and that is why he wanted to avoid it. He tries those victory donuts, but they're not going to work. Trust me, Jack. There we have it. That is Jack Hodson bringing it home on the top step of the podium. John Cole comes home a lap down in P3. Then we have Andy Craig coming home P5. Paul Millman classified P2 in the end, with Steve Knight coming home P4. Barry Clayton P5. Sorry, Barry Clayton P6 as well. And here we have another podium on the cards for Paul Millman. Let's see, as he adds another to his tally, an ever-increasing tally as time goes by. Paul Millman now a bit of a mainstay in the AROC racing leagues, so he deserves yet another podium. The number 69 liveried car there, particularly like the Comic Sans as well. That's a nice touch. As he comes home across the line at 1 minute 10 seconds off the lead of this race, but it's still the only other driver on the lead lap of the race. It's Paul Millman in the pits as he takes P2, and that brings an end to race 1 this evening. Let's hope in race 2 our driver can avoid that grass just a little bit more. We'll see you in a few minutes. And welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are then, the reverse grid race, our final race at Zolder for this season. Our order is Jack Hodson, Paul Millman, Steve Knight, John Cole, Andy Craker, Barry Clayton, Rosie Oliver, our 7 competitors in the reverse grid race. Good to see Rosie joining in as we get some red lights appearing now. It is 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. A good launch there for Steve Knight. Slightly slow off the marks for Andy Craker. John Cole getting a good launch as well. He's already side by side with Steve Knight and Andy Craker. There is Barry Clayton, who's got an exceptionally good launch there, it must be said. He actually led this race, sorry. We were cameraed in on P2, I should add. But it's John Cole up to P2 now. A very good start there as he continues on. Paul Millman is up into P4. He's 4 back against the likes of Steve Knight. Steve Knight under pressure from Jack Hodson and Rosie Oliver as well. Jack Hodson, race 1 victor, of course. And he did that by keeping the nose clean, so he'll be hoping to repeat that feat as we head later on into this race. That might be undone ever so slightly by his sibling here, running in P7 at the moment. As these two do enjoy a bit of a battle here, a bit of a sibling rivalry. So let's see if that continues on. Meanwhile, Barry Clayton leads this race by 1 second. Now it's going much better for him than it did the previous time round. John Cole running in P2, about 1.3 seconds off. We know that Barry Clayton and John are pretty close in terms of pace, but are they close enough to be to break us a proper fight for the lead of this race? John Cole would be the man that you put your money on if you had to put your money on anyone. He had some great pace in qualifying and was very strong indeed through the first race when he was able to avoid the grass. He'll just be hoping he can do that for a little bit longer in order to try and get past Barry Clayton. Meanwhile, Jack Hodson gets ahead of Steve Knight. That's up into P5 for Jack Hodson. Rosie Oliver looks to have had a few issues. He's avoided the main grass, though, which is the main thing, of course. 18 seconds off the lead of the race. Not the start that Rosie would have wanted so far. Barry Clayton, meanwhile, running in P1. Under pressure now, it must be said, from Jack Hodson. Sorry, not Jack Hodson. From John Cole. John Cole certainly closing that gap down. Barry the fastest through the first couple of sectors. John Cole much faster through the final sector. This is going to be a good fight, ladies and gentlemen. I can just feel it already as we see that gap closing down ever so slightly as Barry Clayton goes a little bit too deep into the corner. He makes an aggressive steering maneuver to correct that. But was it a little bit too overly aggressive? It wasn't too bad because, of course, the car is pointing the wrong direction. Andy Craker, your garage mechanics are not going to be best pleased with that one as you absolutely barrel into the curbs. I imagine the other side of the car, suspension and maybe the engine mount, gearbox mount as well, are not entirely happy. But it's certainly not the worst bit of curbing I've ever seen. That has to go to myself. Again, I'm going to bring up that 24-hour race where we were actually running Alfa Romeo Racing League's, sorry, AROC Racing League's liveries, well, livery if you will, stickers at least. We were representing the AROC Racing League, you'll be pleased to know. So I'm glad to see that the curbing that I was doing was representative of what we do have here. Courtesy of Andy Craig. Thank you for that one, Andy. Oh, that's a very near off for Barry Clayton, leading this race, of course, and that's why he has clipped the grass, and that is race over for Barry Clayton in effect. What a disaster, and what a tricky part of the track to be stuck on as well. Burnout as he tries to recover, but there's no point trying to. You're just going to have to jump straight into the pits. He does go straight to the pits, but he's going to be so far down now. That now means John Cole leads this race. He'll be hoping to avoid repeating what he did in race 1 and avoid doing what Barry Clayton's just done in race 2 and try and bring it home in the lead of this race this time around. Andy Craker, meanwhile, 2 seconds off the lead of this race. And Paul Millman, once again, finds himself running in the podium scoring positions. It's been a very good weekend for Paul Millman so far. Those drivers who keep the nose clean are really being rewarded here at Zolder this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Hodson, meanwhile, running in P4, a few seconds clear of Steve Knight. They are our drivers on the lead lap of the race at the moment. No, Rosie Oliver is back out on the lead lap of this race. She looks to have had a few issues as well. Still a couple of points on offer, but nowhere near where she would want to have scored, I can imagine. And now we're seeing Andy Craker actually closing in on John Cole. This is a little bit unexpected, it must be said. Maybe a bit of an off through the final sector. No, I don't think so. It was a slightly slower mid-sector for John Cole. But once again, Andy Craker, purple sector, and he is faster, but I wouldn't have thought it made up that much of a margin. Anyway, it looks like we're going to have another fight for the lead of this race either way, so I'm certainly not disappointed at all. This should be good fun. Paul Millman, meanwhile, running in P3, was going to be hunted down by Jack Hodson. Jack Hodson, who kept the nose clean in race 1. No, don't go there, Jack. Oh no, it's okay. He's avoided it. I thought, obviously, these cars have no steering lock. You need to do everything to avoid the grass. He did clip the grass then, but it seems to be okay. That is disaster for Jack Hodson, though. It's a good thing he kept the nose clean in race 1. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to replicate that here in race 2. He runs in P5 at the moment, 5 seconds down off the likes of Steve Knight. And we go back into the lead of the action with John Cole. He's extended that lead ever so slightly and seems to be in control as long as he can keep the nose clean, avoid the curbs and avoid the grass. Something that I did not manage. Oh, actually, I avoided grass at the 24-hour race. I didn't have an off as such, but I did slightly in my Alfa Romeo Racing League stickered car. AROC Racing League stickered kart. We'll try that again. I did ever so slightly find a bit of a curb. I was going at a fair rate of knots into this curb, and noticed after it that the kart just seemed to feel a little bit weird. You know, the engine wasn't one of the engines, twin-engine kart, left-handed engine wasn't quite feeling up to it anymore. The axle was perhaps feeling a little bit bent, and it was feeling weird on the brakes, and the steering was kind of having a mind of its own. Don't really think anything of it, apart from thought, or maybe it was just a bit worn out. This was hour 18 of 24, so we see John Cole lapping some traffic there, lapping Barry Clayton. What a turnaround in fortunes for Barry there. And carried on my way. About 5 or 6 seconds off the pace at this point, because the kart was proved to be really undrivable, and thought, maybe I'm just not used to the kart. Came in at the end of my stint. If the other drivers would go out, and he's still 5 or 6 seconds off the pace. We bring the kart in. In the driver change, we also get an engine change. We also bring the kart in and say, please, do something about this. This is not good. They do, and they say, we really do think it's the left engine that's causing all your problems. Go back out. So go back out, and the next driver is still 5 to 6 seconds off the lead pace. So we're really scratching our heads now when he comes in. And what he finds is the brake disc, which is attached to the axle, of course, on the kart, is absolutely boiling hot. The caliper had seized because someone earlier on, I'm not going to name names at all, had completely and utterly annihilated the brake caliper and brake disc on this curve. I'd seized the caliper on, and I drove around for 2 hours with a seized brake, ruining the engine, ruining the axle, ruining the handling. So my message to you all, ladies and gentlemen, very, very, very slight interlude there, is races of attrition. You gotta respect them. It's one thing to go quick, it's another thing to try and bring the vehicle you're racing home. And that's something that it looks like John Cole has learned here in race 2. Jack Hodson, who did such a good job of it in race 1, is now fighting for P4 at the moment. Still on the lead lap of this race, but he's fighting Steve Knight at this moment. Had an issue here in race 2. Andy Craig has had a bit of a collision with the wall by the looks of things. Yes, he's stuck in the grass once again. Disaster for Andy Craig. Disconnects from the session. What a shame. Our first DNF of the evening. Barry Clayton, meanwhile, as we see a good overtaking move here from Jack Hodson up on the inside. Use the available space. Nicely done. Clean racing. What we'd like to see. But we're seeing Barry Clayton setting some very fast laps there, actually. A 33.8. That's the fastest lap we've seen all race. Although, once again, John Cole has completed the same feat that he managed to do in race 1. And that is, he's just crossed the line with a 33.4. So that is now the second fastest lap of this race, going to Barry Clayton. So well done to both of you there for that impressive pace you're both demonstrating at opposite ends of the field. And let's see, we're on board at the moment with Barry Clayton. He's got a good turn of pace at the moment, matching John Cole. And there is John Cole, actually, on the start-finish straight. Both of these cars occupying the same part of the track. start of the race, at the start of the racing this evening, you would have thought that would be as they are fighting. Unfortunately, they are on very much opposite ends of the spectrum. Barry Clayton 2 laps down with his earlier issues. John Cole leading, clearly learned from race 1. I'm pleased to report. Let's hope this continues on late into the racing. There's John Cole now leading this race by 21 seconds. And who is there to pick up the pieces? Once again, it is Paul Millman, just as he did in race 1, keeping the nose clean. Paul Millman, my hat off to you, sir. It's been a great drive this weekend for Paul Millman. I want to see if that does change anything for him in the championship. We know the championship is all said and done and is really relevant at this point. It's all just about enjoying what has been a fantastic season's worth of racing. But Paul Millman, 12th in the championship, is going to find himself absolutely flying through the order. 12th at the start of this weekend, 64 points to his name. Andy Craig P10, 86 to his name. And as we see now, as we head through this round, it's 82 points to Paul Millman's name. Ever so slightly behind Steve Knight still. But that's Andy Craig from P9 now ahead of Rosie Oliver, who will be picking up a couple of points as well. So there is actually going to be some change in the championship after this race, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be further down the order, but change nonetheless. And Paul Millman, who was on 60 points previously, now finds himself on 82, closing up on the likes of Steve Knight, Rosie Oliver, and Andy Craker. It's going to be a very good race indeed for Paul Millman. At the end, this finale round of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship, he will find himself jumping a few positions. So, congratulations, Paul Millman. It just goes to show, it's not only is it a race of attrition, you've got to be in it for the long run in this season. There's still plenty of rewards to be reaped if you do keep the nose clean and remain consistent throughout the season. Paul Millman is finding that to be the case this evening. John Cole still leading this race, 23 seconds rather, is the gap that he leads by, doing a very good job, of course. All the brake distance car glowing red hot, and there we have Barry Clayton taking too much curb there. Just about avoids it though. So well done for avoiding an off into the Grass of Doom. Grass of Doom, as it has just been christened. Grass of Doom. There's some Grass of Doom. We're getting very close to the Grass of Doom there, Barry Clayton, but all avoided back of the way with John Cole. 25 seconds now is that lead, and a mighty impressive job out in front for our contender for the championship. It wasn't to be in the end, and Colin Keefe taking that championship by a decent margin. Flashes of brilliance from John Cole just weren't enough towards the very end to make all of the difference. But who knows, next season is a different beast entirely, and that'll be coming up later on in the year. We will have a brief interlude, of course, of a few weeks where we get a bit of respite and a bit more. We still run some events, but they're going to be a bit more casual. That's to give at least a slight chance of a breather for those behind the scenes, likes of Guy Strawbrick, who puts in a mighty effort into keeping these championships going, as well as all those who contribute to the liveries as well. We will be putting on a couple of races over the summer. We'll let you know more about them as it happens. I might be commentating on a couple of them. We don't quite know yet. I might be taking part in them. I'd quite like to take part in them, to be honest. And we might be enjoying some new machinery, as I discussed in qualifying earlier. Maybe something a bit more on the classic side. It's a bit more on the classic side. I just don't think you're quite expecting what it's going to be. It's going to be certainly an interesting choice, but one I am so looking forward to taking part in and watching the racing of, at least. It should be absolutely brilliant fun. So we will be enjoying that for a few weeks before we get underway with our H2 season, our second half of 2024, where we enjoy our single-seater and touring car action for the remainder of the year. This year, I must say, has absolutely flown by. The season, I think half my brain's still in 2023 H1, never mind 2024 H2, which is coming up in the as I say, in the not too distant future. I believe this is coming up now on this will be my 4th year in commentary. This will be season number 8 in terms of the 8th set of seasons. I cannot believe just where that time has gone. It has been absolutely brilliant fun, I must say. Thank you all very much for having me. I thoroughly enjoy it. You introduced me to the world of commentary, something that I am now hoping to pursue further, something that I now am able to pursue further, and I do owe those opportunities to the work done in the AROC Racing League. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart, of course. And yeah, it's been it's been a wild few years, full of some incredible action. But of course, that is the biggest takeaway, as well as some, as I say, some great racing, incredible action, some brilliant opportunities as well. So long may it continue. Let's hope that 2020, the second half of 2024 and 2025 will be good fun as well. 10 minutes to go in this, the final race of the 2024 H1 939 Corse Touring Car Championship here at Zolder. I am, of course, Reeve Taylor. This is, of course, the Zolder circuit, and this is, of course, the LP GTM GT3, inspired by the Giulia, inspired by World of GT Racing, a Giulia Coupe with that 2.9 litre twin-turbo V6 powering us through this Belgian circuit. A fantastic venue, a fantastic car, one that some drivers aren't particularly comfortable with. It's certainly an interesting car in terms of dynamics. Longer wheelbase than the SWB GT3, another Giulia-based vehicle with the same engine. That, of course, running that beautiful, that stunning, that body. Oh, I'm just going to mention it again. Alex Smith is going to bully me. That Zagato-style body is absolutely phenomenal, and the slightly hairier, the slightly twitchier, short wheelbase GT3 is good fun. We're running the regular wheelbase, if you will. As we're seeing a bit of action here between John Cole and Rosie Oliver. Rosie Oliver running in P5 at the moment, is a position ahead of the likes of Barry Clayton, ahead of Andy Crager, of course. Unfortunate retirement for him. Steve Knight running in P4, Jack Hodson P3, Paul Millman P2, John Cole leading this race. A real turnaround in fortunes for John Cole, given how the weekend, well, not the weekend started out relatively well. A good qualifying for John, of course, but race one, certainly one to forget. John Cole extending this lead, then now it is 32 seconds. Shows no sign of slowing down in terms of that momentum. He's not quite on the rapid pace we saw in race one, where he was in the high 32s, mid 33s. He was trying to close up, but he doesn't need to be, of course. He is running very nicely indeed. As long as he keeps off that grass and keeps the nose clean, he doesn't have to do anything else. That's all that really matters. Just over 5 minutes to go now in this race, a race dominated by John Cole, as it turns out. He kept the nose clean. That's all that really matters in the end. Jack Hodson, of course, had those unfortunate incidents earlier on in this race, but it must be said, has led a great recovery. Is closing up on Paul Millman as we speak. Currently running in P3. is Jack, but I think he's gunning for that P2. 7 seconds separate these two cars. A 34.3 on the last lap for Jack, a 35.2 on the last lap for Paul. We're going to see about 4 laps left in this race, so it's going to be close, but there could be a battle yet on the podium. Steve Knight running in P4, another good race for Steve. Rosie running in P5, Barry Clayton P6, a disastrous race for Barry. Here in the reverse grid race, as we've talked about so much this evening, it really is a race of attrition. Staying on board here with Jack Hodson, apart from the very brief incident earlier on, as we say, he has not put a foot wrong. Paul Millman as well, and John Cole. You guys, not biased, of course, but you guys are my top 3 for the racing this evening. They've all put in a mighty job. John Cole, of course, having those incidents early on, but I think Andy Craig actually took the blame for that one in the end. So, as we see, no, I thought for a second there that was a car stopped. I've adjusted the turbo in my Alpha 75, so just in case you're wondering whether the adjustable wastegate's working still in that car that has sat there idling for 4 years, I can confirm it has. It is still working. Rosie Oliver has had a bit of a collision with a wall. Is she back underway? Yes, she is, but she's going to go into the grass, and that is an unfortunate mistake to make. She is back underway, though, luckily. Just about avoids being taken into the void, but, that is not often something you have to watch out for on a racing circuit, but it's certainly one you have to watch out for here at Zolder, so it seems. There is Paul Millman getting past. As we see Jack Hodson, we wondered whether or not he might be closing up that gap to Paul Millman. He doesn't seem to have been able to do so over the past couple of laps. Jack Hodson 34.5, Paul Millman 35.5, so it looks to have got ever so slightly thinner, but over the previous couple of laps, the times are just a bit off, as the laps weren't as clean as they could have been. Still, decent progress here nonetheless. I don't think he's going to be fighting for that P2 anymore, but I'm sure he'll be happy with the podium, given how the race started earlier on. A race win and a podium. That's a very consistent result indeed for Jack Hodson. It will actually be the most consistent and the highest point scoring out of any driver here this evening, matched only perhaps by Paul Millman. Won't be entirely matched, but rivaled by Paul Millman as we head towards the final few minutes of this race. Where is John Cole? John Cole is currently heading on to what will be the penultimate lap of the race in just a few moments' time. In fact, maybe he won't be. No, he might get the lap. And let's go on board with him and see just how close he can get as I adjust the turbo once again. He does cross that line, and it won't actually. This is now the penultimate lap of this race. He crossed the line with 1 minute 30 seconds left on the clock. It is very close indeed, but it's not unfortunately going to be 3 more laps to go. It's going to be 2 more laps to go. We're on that second lap as John Cole is probably quite relieved by that. He just wants to bring this car home now, bring it home with the nose clean. He's not put a foot wrong at all in this race, and I know the commentator's curse is oh so strong, especially with myself. And I do apologise if anything happens, but it's looking good for John Cole, it must be said. 16 seconds left on the timer and just a corner left on this lap for John Cole as he heads down towards Jackie Ick's left-hander in just a moment here. The timer is going to hit 0 as we head through the braking zone with John Cole. This is now the penultimate lap of this race. We're getting ready to start the final lap of this race. And here it is now. The final lap of this race. 1:36 last time around for John Cole. I wonder if the pace is slightly off. Maybe the tyres beginning to give in ever so slightly. He doesn't want reduced grip, does John. He just really wants to bring this car home, I am sure. Does not want to finish this race after all his hard work in race 2, like he did in race 1. So here we are then, John Cole heading through turn 7, the technical part of that tight and twisty stuff here at Zolder, although it's all pretty tight and twisty, it must be said. It has been a great drive. 40 seconds clear of his nearest rival. This is a real turnaround in fortunes compared to race 1. Race 1, bit of a disaster, really. Not entirely for any fault of his own, just a bit of a racing incident, really. But he's kept the nose clean, he's kept out of trouble in a reverse grid race as well, which is no mean feat, which is no easy feat, of course. Now he's being rewarded with a great drive. He ends this season there. Oh, no! Oh! John, I'm so sorry. Now we play a very fine game. Yeah, okay, good. We are back underway. I wondered then for a second if he might actually go into the grass and lose the race victory at the last moment. But he is able to carry on. John Cole, perhaps not entirely in a clean fashion, he's going to finish this season in a representative fashion. He's driven such a good season. He hasn't quite had enough in him to challenge Colin Knief, but he comes home with a race victory to round out this year's running. He doesn't make it easy for himself, of course. He has to make it just that little bit more difficult, make my heart stop once again. I'm billing you all, by the way, all of you in the AROC Racing Leagues. You're all contributing to my medical bills at the end of the year. The end of the year, end of yeah. Because my heart, I'm gonna need private healthcare. My poor heart. Anyway, there's John Cole who comes home in P1, Paul Millman coming home in P2, Jack Hodson coming home in P3. That rounds out our podium runners there. Paul Millman, another fantastic result for Paul here this evening. A really consistent, strong performance here at Zolder, matched only by the likes of Jack Hodson, who's had another great drive as well. Steve Knight will be coming home P4. A great finish for Steve there. Rosie Oliver comes home P5. Barry Clayton P6. That does bring an end to not just this evening's racing at Zolder, but this season. 2024 H1 939 Corse Touring Car Championship. What a fantastic season it has been. Full of action as this evening has demonstrated there. John Cole, I imagine you were just as scared as I was towards the end of that race, but that is the end of the racing action here at Zolder. We aren't, unfortunately, to round out this season, going to have Victory Donuts, because no one can do Victory Donuts, because you'll all end up in a wall. I think Barry Clayton's just given some of them a go. No, he's just had to crash with the pit wall. Never mind. But that does bring an end to... Oh, Jack Hodson might have just attempted some. And what a great weekend he has had. He I'll try it again. Thoroughly deserves to spin some of those donuts, because he's driven such a good drive. Race victory in race 1, podium in race 3 as well. Pretty much unmatched so far this evening. So, all that's left for me is to say thank you very much for watching, not only this race, but this season as well. And no, I think we have some. There we do. Rosie Oliver, as ever, delivers on the Victory Donut. She has found the one spot on track that you can do some Victory Donuts. Thank you, Rosie. By far and away, if there was a championship for Victory Donuts, it's always Rosie who puts in the best ones. He always finds a good spot on track with a good camera angle. That's also important as well. So, perhaps the most important championship there goes to Rosie Oliver for her efforts in the Victory Donuting competition. But that does bring an end to this evening. It brings an end to this season as well. I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating. We're going to enjoy a few weeks break now we might have some alternate racing streamed or at least participated in myself. So going to be plenty of racing action in the interim, I am sure. But for now, thank you very much for watching and a good night.